Hey everybody, hope everyone is doing well. I am here a day after my birthday, back with another video. Um, I felt compelled to make this video because, I like to keep up with current events and keep up with the news. And after I was able to come back from Washington D.C., and I might make a video on that later if you guys are interested. But um, I decided to make this video because I think it's really important, and I hope that people who watch this video and understand what I'm saying will take it into account. So let me explain what I mean. There is an art, there's a certain kind of art to communication. And the one thing that I've noticed is one of the biggest challenges that we face in humanity is communication and communication through knowledge. Now, there's a video, I'll have to see if I can find it. If you guys want me to, I'll post it in the description about not knowing uh you don't know what you don't know, right? It all kind of like goes along with, you know, if you've never learned survival skills and you were suddenly plucked up somewhere and dropped randomly somewhere on this earth, would you be able to survive? Probably not, right? You'd need to gather information. You have to know how to gather that information to make decisions, and you usually have to do that on the fly. And the scary part is if you go to another place or you're in an unfamiliar location and you don't know where to go, or you don't know where to start, you know it's terrifying. So um I like to watch current events, and I like to watch streamers. um One streamer in particular, Asmongold. And I don't watch the streams, I like watching the videos. And the reason why is because I like to see what his take is on it, and I like to see whether or not he notices some of the things that he says. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't, and that's okay. But one of the things that I've noticed, especially when it comes to like podcasts or any conversation between two people, if you want people to understand what you're saying, you cannot tell them to understand. It'll never work, right? Of course. What you have to do is you have to encourage them to understand, which means you have to essentially step outside of your personal experiences and try to understand their experience. This was all confusion for me, but over this past weekend, I discovered about my grandfather. He served in the Vietnam War. He died in Vietnam. The story that I was told was that he stepped on a mine, exploded, killed him instantly. That's what my father told me. My father was also 4 when his father died. What I didn't know, which was the critical piece of information that really changed my perspective, is he died when he was 25 years old. Now, that may seem not much, but I just turned 27. And I just went almost 27 years of my life without knowing that, you know, my grandfather died, he was younger than me. And it really put that into perspective. If he was killed 4 years, if something had happened to him 4 years earlier, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here making this video for you guys. That's powerful. That changes a lot of things on life. And but it also restored my confidence and actually gave me a new fresh outlook on life, right? I know that my grandfather served, lived, and died for this country, and because of what he did, I was able to be here today. It was unfortunate he lost his life. I wish he didn't lose his life because I would have loved to hear stories. But he it was unfortunate circumstances, and now I want to honor his legacy. And as a Christian, the Bible says, "No love uh, has a man, no greater love have a man than he who lay his life down for his friends." And that's what my grandfather did. So Because of that, it made me realize that he died so that I could live, so that my family's heritage could continue. And as being the youngest of many children, now the duty is upon me to continue that legacy. And so, because of that, that's what led me to make this video. so, um, so all jokes aside, well, not really jokes. It's more of my history, but putting aside history, what I began to realize is that most people don't even know where they come from. Some people may not even know their family history. And I think it's important for people to understand their family history because it gives them the confidence like, hey, I can point back to the Vietnam Wall Memorial in Washington, D.C., which, by the way, I had never been in Washington, D.C. up until this point. So this was like the world was opening up to me in a different way. And because of that, it was all because of communication, right? My dad communicated to me how his father died. And while I was going through the Bible, you know, a certain thought occurred to me like, let me see, let me find out as much information as I can about my own grandfather. And so what turns out, he was younger than me. And it's even now it's still it still sticks with me to this day. And so what I realize is we have to learn, generally speaking, how to communicate to each other better. Even if we think that the other person is stupid, smart, dumb, intellectual, uh, um, arrogant, right? So there's a difference between arrogance and confidence. Confidence has the knowledge to back up the action. Arrogance is all talk, but no action. So why is that? Why is confidence and arrogance the same thing? It produces the same behavior. The difference is confidence knows that, hey, I know I can do this because I have the knowledge. I can't show you the knowledge in my head, but I can guide you to that knowledge. Arrogance is like, well, I know I can do this, but do you really know? Hmm. Because if you knew, maybe you'd have been doing it already. But really, what it is confidence is a more positive trait. Arrogance is more of a defensive, negative trait. And I think what's important is when we communicate with each other, when we communicate with others in the world, we have to communicate in a way that's going to encourage positive behavior, positive mindset, right? Listen, I can stand here and tell you about my life story, all the challenges I went through, but that's only to really demonstrate why I know what I know. And there's a lot that I know, and there's a lot that I still have to learn. They say you hit your head a couple of times and you learn the hard way, or you can learn the easy way. There is the easy way to learn is to watch others, extract from that the best, what you see to be positive, and then apply it for yourself. If it works, sure, good, stick with it. If it doesn't work or something's not right, don't just discard it. See if there's maybe an error in the analysis or if the analysis was incorrect. Maybe there was something you missed. The goal purpose of the way we live is to try to achieve a better life for all of us. But most personally, most most specifically yourselves. I can only do what's best for me, and the only way I know what's best for me is to try to apply what I know works best for other people. And communication is one of the hardest parts because it requires a level of patience that most people don't really have. It requires a level of patience, focus, determination that you really have to practice first with yourself, right? Being able to hold long, extended conversations with yourself to kind of get a sense of who you are as an individual. Then you can go to someone that you trust, whether it's your partner, your wife, and you start communicating with them. But but don't just communicate, don't just talk to them. Dictionaries are fantastic, by the way. Dictionaries and thesauruses. Let me tell you. I used to read the dictionary. I used to read the thesaurus as a kid. I know it's crazy, right? Who does that? But it's important because every word has a meaning, and either it's a good meaning or a bad meaning. Just like I always say, confidence and arrogance, right? They're antonyms, right? Synonyms is like confidence, bravery. They're kind of synonymous. So look up a synonym rule. Look up an antonym. Uh, Go to dictionary. You can do all those sorts of things. And the amazing thing is now we have AI that we can search things. Hey, what's the definition of this? Um, let's take this sentence and let's try to rephrase it in a positive light, right? But why is that? People respond more appropriately when you encourage them to look into things rather than if you tell them to do things. I know because I've been told all my life to do things and I hated it. I didn't want to be told what to do. I mean, I can figure things out myself. Like, I have a brain. But it wasn't a matter of being told what to do. If I was encouraged to do it, I probably would have done better. But that's what I had to do for myself. I had to encourage myself by saying, was there a better way for that to communicate to me? Maybe there's something that I'm missing. Maybe I need to look into this some more. What is the context to certain side of it, right? And then you have to be able to take from both sides, right? I don't believe that people say things deceptively. And it's because just like how children learn by what they experience in the world around them, in the environment that they're in, it's not just for children, it's for all of us. We all do it. We all learn from each other, both good and bad. What's important is that we understand and are able to extrapolate the good stuff and get rid of the bad stuff, right? It's like, I don't know, you're eating a pie, let's say like a cherry pie, and you're eating a pie and it gets into your let's say you get a seed, right? Well, you don't throw away the whole pie because oh, there's a seed in it, right? You get rid of the seed and you just eat the pie. That makes sense. So the same thing goes here, right? You don't want, if you're not sure about something, either you can do one of two things. You can either look it up, do your research yourself, or you can leave it alone and wait until another time. But never discount the other person's opinion, because when you start creating a narrative, or when you start creating an idea that someone's doing this because of this, or this person knows, well, what if you consider a possibility that maybe they don't know? And if we learn to step back a little bit and just listen to the whole sentence, listen to the inflection in the voice. Is it a questioning inflection? Because if it's a question inflection, that means they're looking for an answer. But you have to propose the answer in a way that makes sense to them. So, what you do is you don't tell them the answer, you guide them to the answer. And the reason why you guide them to the answer, because now once they began to realize, you know what? That actually makes sense. Then it'll light a spark and they'll start questioning a lot of the other things. And then what ends up happening is when they start asking questions about, okay, well, what about this? They say, oh, well, let's look it up together. People never want to be wrong. People want to be right. But when people don't realize that, when people try to take that, um, oh, I gotta be, I'm right, and never stop to say, I could be right. And honestly, from what I can tell, is the more I talk to people and the more I listen to them, more I say is, yeah, people are usually generally right. However, it's not about who's more right than the other. It's about, do you have enough context to accurately um do you have enough context to accurately communicate what you're trying to say? In other words, what's your intent, right? Words is just the way that we use to communicate. But the way we understand each other is when we can understand the intent behind the words. But if you come to a conversation with a preconceived notion that they have an intent already, and you've already determined that intent without first, exploring what their intent is, well, that's where you start to get a bit of an issue, right? Seems like it. Well, what if we consider that maybe they're asking because they actually genuinely don't know? Taking that approach, you can start to understand people a little bit more, and you'll be able to get people to understand more what you say, right? And then what ends up happening is you'll find out that maybe you guys aren't so different after all. You guys are looking at the same situation, but from different perspectives. And that's okay. That's actually fine. Because guess what? If we take it an example of a child and a parent, right? Child doesn't really know much about the world. Okay, they've only been living on Earth the X amount of years. But a parent who's been there, who's had their own experiences and things like that, and who's bore the pain, the agony of maybe the past sins of their fathers or the abuses and things like that to them, can now use that experience to tell their child, "Hey, listen, don't go this way, don't do this thing, don't do this." And then the child is young, they don't really understand. But what I realize is you're more effective when you teach a child by teaching them how to think. And once you get that going, it's pretty much autopilots, right? They pretty much uh they can start thinking for themselves. You have to treat people with the same intelligence that you want other people to treat you with, right? Never insult anyone's intelligence, but always ask questions that promotes thinking, whether positive or negative. You want people to learn how to think, and you'll never get people to think unless you ask them questions. You can ask them questions, they'll think about it, and if they can start putting pieces together, they'll start to understand, and then you'll find common ground. It's like if we're walking in the dark and I happen to find a platform, and I know that platform puts me at a better advantage, and I'm telling you, "Hey, come to me," and you're like, "Where do I step? I can't go anywhere. I have to step this way, right?" That's not gonna work. But if you said, "Hey, can you hear my voice?" Yeah, I can hear your voice. Can you can you feel the ground below you? Yeah, I can feel the ground below me. Can you feel the ground? Can you try your best to feel the ground in the direction of where you hear my voice? Right? Ask them questions like that. You have to guide them to understand, not guide them to believe what you're saying, but to understand what you're saying. There's a difference because believing in things doesn't really require much thought at all. In fact, that's why a lot of people believe the news and not really go into the details behind it, right? But if you try to, if you say, okay, well, let's take some time and understand this and do this and do research and see if this makes sense. But guess what? Not many people have time to do that. So the best thing you can do is when you're communicating something is to really ask questions about, why do you think this way? Or, maybe they might say a phrase. So, okay, well, where did you hear this from? Okay, well, let's take a look at it. Hmm. I wonder if there's anything else that exists that maybe might say point something to the contrary. And the greatest part is we have alternate resources everywhere. And in fact, I mean, we've started to have, recordings of everything. And so we can mentally record our actions and kind of keep track of where we're going. And it's not that hard, actually, because when you ask questions, believe it or not only are you getting them to think, you're actually getting yourself to think too. Because now you're thinking of the appropriate questions to ask them so that they can think for themselves and give an appropriate answer. And so you both help. Rod, as iron sharpeneth iron, so does a man. I forget the exact quote, but basically, as iron sharpeneth iron, so does a man count with friends. When you have intelligent conversations, when you're asking questions about each other or about what you guys think or your own perspective, that's where you really get positive growth. And that's how you're actually able to help everyone. And it's okay to admit if you don't really know. That's fine. That's perfect, actually, because now that allows you to go back and do your own research and maybe investigate your own thoughts, right? Maybe there's something that you believe that was incorrect. I've been corrected many times because there's something I thought was this way, and I had very little evidence. And then, like, my partner, she would come to me and say, "Hey, I didn't like the way that you said this." I said, "Well, what did I say that was wrong?" She said, "Well, you saying this, but what about this?" I said, and don't get me wrong, I'd get defensive off first, but I'm like, but then I have to stop and say, she has a point. Maybe I don't really know about it. So then I go back and I do my research, and when I find the information that she's talking about, okay, thank you. And then I go further because say maybe because what I realize is when I'm wrong, one, I have to admit I'm wrong, but two, I have to quickly figure out how I can correct my thinking so that later in the future I'm less likely to get wrong. And this is the art of self improvement. Not all the you gotta do this and you gotta do that. No. You just have to learn how to think intelligently. And think intelligent means asking questions. Think of it as a child, right? How does a child develop? They ask questions. Why? Why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? Well, why is it? Let's find out together. And through that, you'll find that you'll actually get people to understand why things are the way they are. And if they don't try to force them to either. You just have to ask the right questions to get them to start thinking, and then the rest will take care of itself. So, I just wanted to say that. Hopefully, if this video helps you, you know what to do. I'm not gonna have to tell you what to do, but hope you have a wonderful night, and until the next video.